Lear always was a somewhat ridiculous figure, was already all too aware of what he will always see as his own defects. He was tall and didn't, or couldn't, dress well. He was nearsighted and stooped. He giggled. His nose was, he said, large and shapeless. Like many sensitive people, he mocked himself not just because it was amusing and easy to do, but presumably to preclude others from making similar remarks. There was an old man with a nose who said, "If you choose to suppose that my nose is too long, you are certainly wrong," that remarkable man with the nose. He had, therefore, a marked sympathy with, shall we say, the deficiencies of others. The pobble who has no toes had once as many as we. When they said, "Some day you may lose them all," he replied, "Fish fiddle-dee-dee." And his Aunt Jobiska made him drink lavender water tinged with pink, for she said, "The world in general knows there's nothing so good for a pobble's toes." The pobble, who has no toes, swam across the Bristol Channel, but before he sat out, he wrapped his nose in a piece of scarlet flannel, for as Aunt Jobiska said, no harm can come to his toes if his nose is warm, and it's perfectly known that a pobble's toes are safe, provided he minds his nose. The pobble swam fast and well, and when boats or ships came near him, he tinkledly blinkledly winkled a bell so that all the world could hear him. And all the sailors and admirals cried, when they saw him nearing the further side, "He has gone to fish for his Aunt Jobiska's Runcible cat with crimson whiskers." But before he touched the shore of the Bristol Channel, a sea-green porpoise carried away his wrapper of scarlet flannel, and when he came to observe his feet, formerly garnished with toes so neat, his face at once became forlorn on perceiving that all his toes were gone. And nobody ever knew, from that dark day to the present, whoso had taken the pobble's toes in a manner so far from pleasant. Whether the shrimps, or the crayfish gray, or crafty mermaids stole them away, nobody knew and nobody knows how the pobble was robbed of his twice 5 toes. The pobble who has no toes was placed in a friendly bark, and they rowed him back and carried him up to his Aunt Jobiska's park. And she made him a feast, at his earnest wish, of eggs and buttercups fried with fish, and she said, "It's a fact the whole world knows that pobbles are happier without their toes." Lear, as I've already mentioned, suffered all his life from ill health, most horribly from asthma and epilepsy, a secret from even his dearest friends. Lear kept his secrets. In Lear's time, epilepsy was still seen as a symptom of insanity, a failure of character, a shameful thing. He nearly always knew when he was about to have a grand mal seizure, and would excuse himself so as not to impose on the company. He also found he did better when traveling, and so lived a peripatetic life. His other secret he kept even from himself. Lear was a romantic. He fell in love, truly in love, more than once, always with young men who were all that he himself was not, handsome, aristocratic, socially acceptable. That they were all uniformly, boringly, heartbreakingly normal, made for the other tragedy of his often rather melancholy existence. They all were very English and straight, with names like Fortescue and Baring, and the great, inexplicable love of his life, the surprisingly dull, if interesting sounding, Franklin Lushington. He would meet them traveling, and for a while they would go on together, each in turn charmed and flattered by the attention and good company of this extraordinary man. Each, in his turn, would leave him, would marry, and make a respectable career, and raise a respectable family. Lear would write them funny and fascinating letters, full of his travels, invention, and wit. He would make friends of their wives, write nonsense for their children. None of these very English gentlemen probably ever knew quite how much they meant, or might have meant, to that omnivorous, inscrutable fellow, Lear. The owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea-green boat. They took some honey, and plenty of money wrapped up in a 5-pound note. The owl looked up to the stars above and sang to a small guitar, "Oh, lovely pussy, oh, pussy, my love, what a beautiful pussy you are, you are, you are, what a beautiful pussy you are." Pussy said to the owl, "You elegant fowl, how charmingly sweet you sing. Oh, let us be merry, too long have we tarried, but what shall we do for a ring?" They sailed away for a year and a day to the land where the bong tree grows. And there in a wood a piggywig stood with a ring at the end of his nose, with a ring at the end of his nose. "Dear pig, are you willing to sell for 1 shilling your ring?" said the piggy. "I will." So they took it away and were married next day by the turkey who lives on the hill. They dined on mince and slices of quince, which they ate with a runcible spoon, and hand in hand on the edge of the sand they danced by the light of the moon, the moon, the moon. They danced by the light of the moon. Come the day, Lear had to give up his natural history studies. His eyesight simply would not support the close work required for perfect anatomical accuracy. And so, he gave art lessons and became a landscape and architectural painter. Beneath these high cathedral stairs lie the remains of Susan Pears. Her name was Wiggs, it was not Pears, but Pears was put to rhyme with stairs. Among his art students, he numbered one Victoria, Queen, don't you know, of the United Kingdom. She liked him and he her. In a letter to a friend, Lear told the following story of his time at the palace. The Queen one day was showing Lear the priceless collection of royal miniatures. Says Lear, "Oh, where did you get all these beautiful things?" As though Her Majesty had picked them up at an antique shop. The Queen's answer, Lear remarked, was an excellent one, kind but dignified, and as his biographer says, completely conclusive. "I inherited them, Mr. Lear." In 1846, he published his first book of nonsense. He offered the copyright to his publisher for £100. Being cautious, they declined. By the third edition in 1861, he warned them that what with the success of the book and its immediate and long-lasting popularity, his price had gone up. Edward Lear was paid £125, and he happily took it, and doubtlessly gave a good part of it away to his many poor relations, to charities, to beggars in the street. He was blessed in the last decades of his life to have the care and friendship of an Albanian Greek manservant, Giorgio Kokali, whom he had met in Corfu. Giorgio would stop him giving away more than he had. His nonsense has never been out of print since, and has sold in the millions of copies. It is beloved in all the English-speaking world.